Good morning, everyone, and welcome to The View. This is Michael Tino, joining you from Peekskill, New York, where it is a gray, cloudy spring day. Today, we are dealing with an important and difficult topic. We've titled our show today "Modern Day Lynchings," and talking about what is ours as Unitarian Universalists to do and hold in these times. There are times at which the world makes it very obvious that we on The View have to talk about something that is happening out there that's hard. And so we're going to try to do this with as much grace as we can. And so I want, before I ask our hosts and our guest host to introduce themselves, to start with a little moment of centering, a little moment to take a deep breath, to understand that we are talking about lives, and lives that are being taken, and lives that are at risk, and we are talking about Minneapolis, but we are talking about New York, and we are talking about other cities that are not in the news today as well. And we're talking about difficult things. So welcome to The View this morning. Christina Rivera, how are you this morning?
Hi, Michael. Hi, everyone. I'm Christina Rivera. I'm coming to you from Charlottesville, Virginia, where the day is appropriately kind of gray and overcast. Aisha.
I'm Aisha Hauser, and I'm in Seattle, Washington, where while there is the sun out, it is not something I'm going to be able to in any way feel warmth from. Meg.
Hi, I'm Meg Riley. I'm in Minneapolis, where it's gray, and also around my house it smells very much like burning, a smell which I largely associate with fires in the woods, but in this case it's fires in the city. Dawn Fortune is a guest host this morning. Dawn.
Hi, good morning. I'm here in South Jersey, not far from Atlantic City, where it is humid and kind of gray and misty. It seems to be a gray day everywhere. It's a tough day. It's a tough time. I wish I had words to heal. But good morning. Darren, I don't know you. Welcome.
And Lori Stone is doing tech for us this morning. Lori, do you want to say hi?
Yes, thanks. My name is Lori. I am in Phoenix, Arizona. It has been over 108 degrees here the last couple of days, and I suspect today will be the same. It's 8 a.m. here, so don't know quite yet what the high is going to be. And I'm erstwhile from Indianapolis as well. I moved out here 3 years ago, and I know that the community in Indianapolis is reeling from three deaths, extrajudicial deaths by police in an 8-hour period a couple weeks ago. So I'm been watching closely what's going there as well. As you mentioned, there's a lot of cities where this is happening that don't get into the news in the same ways. So I will be on YouTube today, fielding your questions and comments and making sure that the panelists and guest host and hosts know what's happening there. And I'll be monitoring our Twitter channel at CLF-VUU. So you can join us either of those places. Primarily, the best way to talk to us is through the YouTube channel. That's where the majority of people, we've already got over 20 people hanging out there. So if you want to join the conversation, come hit us up at the YouTube channel.
Thank you, Lori. We have 3 guests with us right now. We might have one more person joining us later. Things are moving and in progress right now. And for those who are new to us, either viewers or guests, we talk about the weather at the beginning of the hour to allow people a few minutes to make their way into our show. And it seems so trivial sometimes when people are dead and dying and being killed by police, and yet we do it because it allows people a few minutes to make their way in and not actually miss any of the important things that you are going to say in a few minutes. So we have Michael Dotson and Darren Woodson here from Minneapolis, and Quiana Perkins here from Ann Arbor, Michigan. I'm going to ask you to introduce yourselves and tell us why you're here this morning. Quiana, you're unmuted, so do you want to start?
Yeah, so my name's Quiana Perkins. My pronouns are she and her. I lived in Minneapolis for the first 32 years of my life, 33-ish maybe actually. And so I went to South High School, which is on 3131 19th Street. I worked at the Midtown, I worked at the YWCA for 7 years, which is right along Lake Street. So when I say that's my community, like that's my home Target. Like when I think of Target, that's what I'm comparing it to. So Minneapolis is home in every way possible. I come here today as a person who is filled with faith, who's filled with faith towards liberation of Black and brown people and all the ways that we can get free. I do work at a brick and mortar church here in Ann Arbor. I do volunteer very extensively with Black Lives Unitarian Universalist. And although all of those things appear and show up, I get to be here today as Quiana, a person who loves her community and wants to see us get liberated.
Thank you, Quiana. Michael?
My name is Michael Dotson. I'm actually in St. Paul across the river from Minneapolis, but First Universalist Minneapolis is my home church. I grew up in Chicago and have been in the Twin Cities for 55 years. I've been involved at First Universalist in a variety of different ways, and I currently facilitate a spiritual circle for people of color and indigenous people. Not sure what else would be useful in this current introduction, so I'll stop.
Thank you. Welcome. And Darren Woodson, welcome to our show. Please introduce yourself.
Hi, I'm Darren Woodson. My pronouns are she, her, hers. I identify as a Black woman. I don't right now feel compelled to usually do the typical qualifiers of like what makes me worthy to be here on the panel, because I feel like it feeds my inferiority complex. I'd say I'm here because I'm exhausted. And now is a time and a place in the middle of a pandemic where Black and brown lives and indigenous lives are being wiped out by a virus at greater rates. And we just don't even need murder on top of it. And so from a spiritual place and a real place, like, it's not just what are we gonna talk about, but like, what are we actually gonna do? Because I'm tired, I'm really tired.
Thank you. And yeah, you're here because you're important. And you're important to Meg, who invited you to be here this morning. So we're glad that you're with us. I don't, to be honest, know where to start this conversation. I feel like, Quiana, you know where to start, because please go ahead.
I think we need to start this conversation from a spiritual place, because that's where, when you honor the spiritual connectivity that we all have to the pain that explicitly Black and brown bodies are experiencing, the ability to engage it becomes different. Because I don't know about y'all, but I don't want to have a conversation about white guilt. I don't want to have a conversation about passing out cookies to white people for doing online activism. I do want to have a conversation that's grounded in intentionality and honesty. And so that's going to require folks to like let down that shield and be really honest about deeply embedded systems of poverty and social inequality that are working how they're supposed to. This is what happens. This is what's supposed to happen. This system is working exactly how it's supposed to. To live in America as a Black person, I'm not even going to say brown, is to live with some level of gaslighting, of being told your reality isn't real. And rioting, as Dr. Martin Luther King, as you love to quote, is the language of the unheard. And so what we're seeing in Minneapolis, what we're seeing in places all across the country, and we have been since way before Ferguson, is an acknowledgement of that gaslighting, is an acknowledgement of these two dichotomous worlds where we matter, but nothing in our world affirms us in that mattering. You matter, we need you on the front lines. Here's a couple of masks, here's some gloves, here's $1,200, hope that works. We're not gonna freeze your rent. And go to work every day with no childcare and no way to support your family or pay medical bills if somebody gets sick. So these two contrasting conversations at some point are going to clash, and that's what's happened in Minneapolis. When you state sanction violence through police mandate, this is the result of what happens. So I guess I just want to put that out there, that this isn't about guilting anyone or shaming anyone. This is about dismantling and abolishing. For me, I'm only speaking for me. I'm not on the ground. I'm not in the city. I don't smell fire. I don't have ashes flying in my front yard. But a lot of people who I love, my mom, my sisters, my siblings, are in the power of that movement and that energy right now. So I want to just turn the floor over to the folks who are living in that reality, whose daily reality is impacted in ways that mine isn't, because I'm here and not there.
So let's do that. Maybe our guest from Minneapolis, St. Paul, will tell us, a little bit about what it's like to be where you are right now.
I would start saying thank you to Quiana for what she said. And I would say, to be Black and melanated in the US, it doesn't matter actually what physical location you're in. The experience is the same. The gaslighting is the same. The state sanctioned murders is the same. And so where I'm coming from into this space, and from a spiritual place, and sharing and being in circle yesterday with other people of color, and sharing with our Black minister, Karen Hutt, I'm in the space of a very hard truth of that the killings won't stop. They won't, because they are designed this way. Police are not designed to protect Black lives. They're not designed to protect brown lives. They're designed to, they were created and designed to kill Black lives specifically in this country. And I'm in a place of where do we start from there? I'm also in a place of how do we abolish it? How do we get rid of it? Police within again, Black and brown communities, because if they're function and designed to kill us, why do we need to hold on to it and convince others that this system needs to stay for some false reason? Because I talked to my dad, I talked to my grandmother, or at least read the things from my grandmother, because she had transitioned on almost 2 years ago, and their stories are the same, that nothing has changed. And it feels crazy to expect a change to happen without a change, a dismantling and abolishing of systems. and using that organized power to do that across the country. Because again, it doesn't matter what physical location we're in. Change at Minneapolis, for Indianapolis, for Detroit, for Ann Arbor, anywhere. We'll still get the same results. We still have the same results. It's just some of them are not fortunate enough to be recorded.
Thank you. It's been suggested that before we go deeper into this conversation, maybe we should start with some basic facts about why we're talking about this, because there might be people out there in the VUU land who don't know, because part of the system that gaslights is that people get to not know if our skin looks like this. So I'm wondering if someone with more familiarity of what has happened in Minneapolis specifically might tell us a little bit, and maybe Meg, you want to do that, because
Sure.
thank you.
It's hard to imagine anybody not knowing this because it's been international news, because brave onlookers filmed and yelled and tried to stop a slow, sadistic, purposeful murder of an unarmed, unresisting Black man who was suspected of using a counterfeit $20 bill. And the police officer, who to my knowledge has not yet been arrested, knelt on his neck for 8 minutes while he slowly died. He wasn't moving for the last 4 minutes, and the police officer did not get off his neck. So that video footage, which is, I hope no person of color I know has watched it. It is so traumatic. Has been condemned by people up to President Trump, ha ha ha, because it is so visibly cruel and vicious and wrong. And because of activism in this community, the officer who did that and the 3 officers who witnessed that, because of activists and their demands, were all suspended without pay, which is new because the union says you get pay while things are investigated. The head of the police union, Bob Krull, is a white nationalist, as is true in many cities. And the police chief, Rondo, is a Black officer who's now the chief, who at one point sued the department for racism and is nicknamed Officer Friendly, a super nice, thoughtful police officer who they have been using Obama's Department of Justice changes to change the way training happens and to change the way things happen. And these officers completely ignored that. This completely violated every protocol and did this.
Yes, and so Breonna Taylor was murdered in her bed by police officers who were not in uniform, looking for a man who they already had in custody. So Breonna Taylor, George Floyd, John Crawford, we can go down the list for going back to the slave patrols, which is where this all started. Modern US policing started with slave patrols, and that has not changed. And you only have to look at what happened at the Capitol in Michigan, where armed white people were hostile, yelling at police, and the police did fucking nothing. So if there's any doubt, what I don't want to hear is one fucking Unitarian Universalist arguing with me about the words fucking white supremacy. I don't want to hear it, not even a little bit. I don't want to hear about your fucking freedom of speech, because look at those 2 images just weeks apart. Unarmed Black people were in Minneapolis seeking justice. And now there's reports that some of those looting and riots some dude was walking around breaking windows. Maybe that was a cop. We don't know. So this is, yes, George Floyd, yes, that happened. This is about continued slave patrol, white people in this country love their police. This is operating the way it's supposed to. That's what needs to change. And Unitarian Universalists who were able to work toward marriage equality can now work toward abolishing the police and transforming this fucking system that is working exactly the way it's supposed to. So this one incident was filmed, and Breonna's murder was not filmed. So we don't hear about Breonna Taylor as much as we have been George Floyd, right? So that's what needs to happen is white UUs can stop with the guilt and can now mobilize the way we did for marriage equality, because that brought results. We're 1,000+ congregations. We may not be that many people, but when we want to change something, we do.
Yeah, and I think to Aisha's point, one of the reasons why I titled this this view about modern day lynchings and what is ours as Unitarian Universalists to do and hold in this times is because it is ours to do and to hold. There is no question that our Unitarian Universalist theology holds us to the liberation of all of our people, and in particular, our Black people. So the time for questioning whether or not the tactics that we're being told by our Black and Brown siblings are the right tactics or the right strategy, like that time is over, right? So the time of kind of having this intellectual curiosity about, whether or not abolishing, ICE and abolishing the prison industrial complex can actually be done. That time is over. Like that intellectual pursuit of, reason and this there's other words for it that I won't use on the view, but it's just, that time is over. If you want to continue to have those intellectual thoughts and conversations, that's not what we need at this time. And it's not saying that reason isn't a valuable thing to do. It's not saying intellectual pursuits aren't valuable. What it's saying is we know what needs to happen. We know that we need to dismantle the prison industrial complex. We know that we need to abolish ICE. We know that we need to abolish the way that police, operates. We know this. This is not, this isn't a time for us to try and figure things out or wonder what it is for us to do. We know that our theology says that we already have the access to heaven on earth. We just need to work to make it available for everyone. And so as Unitarian Universalists, this is ours to do. It's not ours to, wonder about who else is going to be doing this work. It is ours to do. And as Aisha said, we've done it. We know how to do this work. It has to be something that we are willing to commit our lives to.
Yeah, I think it's also important to note how deeply embedded in the experience of whiteness in the United States, the fact that that's what the police do is. And if there's any question about that, we can look at the news in New York, where a Black man watching birds in Central Park asked a white woman to put her dog on a leash, and she called the police and said, "I'm going to tell them that an African-American man is threatening me," because she knew that the police would be her lynch mob if she needed them or wanted them to be. She didn't need them. She did not need it. So it's embedded in also in the experience of whiteness in the United States too, this white supremacy, and the way in which the police reinforce white supremacy. Quiana?
So a question was asked about essentially how are folks keeping faith and staying in a space of radical love? In this moment, radical love looks like radically loving myself. I feel like things happen in waves and layers. First, you got to love you, then you can love your, next layer of circle. It kind of keeps going and going. And right now, radical love looks a lot like using big words like abolition. It means using big words like dismantle. It means using the word Black with a capital B and not shying away from that. It looks like giving myself space to not be in meetings, to not be in mixed space if that's not helping my spirit. It's opening up spaces and saying, I'm in this Zoom room, and if you are a person who identifies as Black, I'm going to be here for the next hour just to hold space for you. Radical love, at this point, I have not shifted my love circle to care about larger community, which in this case includes white people. I'm not there yet. It's going to be a minute. I am a mom. I have 2 kids to protect. I have to protect my own heart and spirit. And so I guess that's how I'm taking care of myself, is by owning the capacity in which I can function, which right now is my immediate, are my kids okay? Am I okay? Let me have this conversation with CLF, and then I need to step away for a while. And then I can maybe come back to the table and open the circle a little wider. But self-care right now is really radical, to not be educating and servicing white folks who are just trying to understand. I'm not a good understand teacher right now. I'm a good go find your people and have a conversation with your people right now person.
Thank you. Michael Dotson, I'm aware that I started going around our guests and didn't get to you because we were asked for background, and I want to bring your voice in. How are you doing right now?
Thank you, Michael. I, in this conversation, am not sure how to fit into the flow of the conversation. The realities have been spoken, identified. People have said this is what needs to happen, and I don't argue with any of that. Where I find myself, and maybe it's an answer to your question about self-love, is to me, the world is going by, and I feel like I'm standing in the middle of the street without a great deal of power and at risk. So it doesn't, I think, shed light on what needs to be done or how other people will proceed. But my self-love is trying to sense what's happening in my body. And there's an energy, but there's also a numbness. And be at peace with being threatened in the world, not acceptance. But I don't have a sense of intent. This is what I need to do. Because in a way, we're having this conversation as though we're having this conversation because something terrible happened in Minneapolis. A Black man was killed by the police. And that makes this a significant conversation. But the experience isn't unique. And so it's again, and I don't know what to say to the experience of again. I'm an educator. I'm a counselor. I like to do things that are productive and support human development. I don't have anything to give in that vein right now.
Thank you. So we do have a number of people online engaging in conversation. I want to hold up that the question about love came from Ndidi Achebe. So just to bring our guests, our viewers into this, Jacaren Taylor writes, talk, only goes so far. What's the plan? That's a big
Let's talk about
question.
action. What
Okay.
can you do?
Please.
Right, and I think,
Go ahead.
Go ahead, Darren.
I was just going to name, I've spoken on this in front of the chalice at my church and stuff like that, which is UU is, for at least First Universalist, is a predominantly white space. And white people need to actually do the inner work and recognize that they are inherently racist, the same way I was born into our society and am inherently anti-Black. Those are ugly truths that need to be reckoned with. Because when it doesn't get reckoned with, what ends up happening over and over in these UU spaces is white congregants keep wanting to save us because they deep-seatedly think that they are better than us. They believe deep-seatedly that they are superior to us. And so much of their identity is wrapped in and around that. I don't need you to save me. Nope. I don't need you to validate me. I need you in a simple action to take your white body and physically put it there in front of the police and protect me. Because if you have the ability to walk into a school or go to a place and shoot it up and walk out with your lives, then as much as you're recording, you are safe to walk your physical body up into that police officer's face and you will still have your life. You need to use that for protection. No words, no validations. And if you, again, constantly deal with the threat of, oh, but is this right or this and this, that's coming from a place of superiority. That's coming from a place that you need to look inward and look at your soul and recognize this is a reckoning of your soul, not mine. Toni Morrison talks about that all the time. It's a reckoning of white people's souls, their morals, not ours. You need to do that work.
I just need to acknowledge the sermon we just heard. Darren. I don't need your book club. I don't need your Martin Luther King speech on January 19th. I need you to use your body to save my life. Not your life for my life. That's not what you just said, Darren. You said, I need you to use your body to save my life because we are interconnected. Which one of the principles is that? I know somebody else knows that. Thank you, Darren, for calling that, for naming that. Some other things, if you are physically in Minneapolis, find a small business that is along Lake Street. Offer to clean up glass. Offer to board up windows. Offer to help financially restore their business. Tell them thank you for being a business along a corridor that supports your community. If you are physically in Minneapolis, there are places where you can drop off milk and magnesia and other medical supplies. Different churches and other places have been set up. All you need is Google. You have Wi-Fi, you're here, don't play me, okay? If you want to give of your time, of your physical resources, drop off 10 masks somewhere. Sew 10 of them today and drop them off at First Universalist Church. The address is what? DuPont? I don't even know the numbers anymore. If you are not in Minneapolis, if you are not physically in that area, go online, find a business that needs support. Google, it's real easy. Give your money. Make no mistake, capitalism and this system of oppression are tied together. Money won't solve everything, but it will make a difference. Don't kid yourself. Give to bail funds. People are being held who have committed no other crime than saying the death of this man was wrong. Give your money. Sit your white children down and tell them you are not colorblind and neither are they. If you are willing to have this conversation with us, you need to be willing to have it with a child. I'm a person who parents with a white person. They are sitting down and talking to my 2 Black children right now about how they feel and their own personal responsibility in making a change. You're a parent, have a parent conversation. You have a cousin, go talk to your cousin. Don't come talk to brown and Black folks who are in pain and trauma. We are healing ourselves. If the only super cape you can put on is to save Black and brown people, you have already died. You have already not saved yourself. When you are in an airplane, what's the first thing they tell you? Use your mask. Because if you can't save you from your whiteness, you sure in the hell will not be using your whiteness to save me. It doesn't work that way. I said it, I said it, I said it. So if you need to use your whiteness to save somebody, save yourself. Become your own savior. I got this. I have a community of Black and brown people who are surrounding me 20, 30, 50 layers deep. Who's surrounding you? Who did you call this morning to make sure they were okay? Who did you check on this morning? We got us. We been had us. Who got you? Who are you upholding? What narrative are you changing? I'ma stop. But the truth of the matter is, I'ma stop. Find your people. Love on your people. And get back in the street.
Amen. Amen.
I will not argue with any of that. I thank you, Quiana, Darren. I think I introduced a skeptical, non-hopeful note when I spoke before, and I'll bring it again. This is, again, so somebody tell me why it's going to be different this time, why people are going to do something different this time that they didn't do last time and the time before. We are ripe for change. I don't know what's going to make that happen. VUUs would be a good place to make things happen. There's a lot of power in our congregations. But tell me, please, what's going to be different this time from every other time before? I would love that question to be answered, because I don't want to stay framed in an unhopeful position. So I really do want a positive answer. What's going to change this time and why?
I mean, I think for me, I think the hard answer is it's not. Like, I think one of the hard answers that I've learned through my ministry is the change that we need in order for our people to stop dying is probably not something I'm going to see. And that's hard. That's, it feels like it's giving up on the thing that is most precious to me, which is my children. And so, I think Ndidi asked, how do we keep going? How do we continue to have faith in the face of, how do I continue to have faith in the face of knowing that this is going to happen again, right? That's the hard truth, that this is going to happen again. And to me, the faith is in the people. It's in my Unitarian Universalist community of people like Aisha and Quiana and Leslie and Marisol and Julika. It is in knowing that the people that like Quiana said, those layers, that we will not give up forcing that incremental change that will ultimately get to where our children are free. And, maybe that's just my cynical view for the day, but it's real for me. It's real for me right now to name that, it's going to happen again, and I'm not going to see that outcome that I want for me.
When I was growing up in the 70s and 80s, the idea of 2 men, 2 women, transgender folks marrying was as preposterous as abolishing jails right now. It can be done, and part of me wants to give in to saying it won't, but it can. There is nothing about transforming our justice system that is impossible, because if white people want it, it'll happen tomorrow. That's a fact, an actual factual. And when folks in UU special, I'm using UU, this is what I know the best. Family members came out as gay and trans. Suddenly it was my brother, my sister, my child, my sibling, my cousin, my uncle. Then there was the will to make something happen that was unimaginable. Think about when you were a child, the idea of same gen, and I mean, that's one example. And it happened in our lifetime, right? I heard same thing that you just said, Chris. I heard people say it's not going to happen in our lifetime. Like, that's impossible. Children, we got to protect. There was all the reasons why it couldn't happen. So I name that because when people want it, it happens. There's no reason why it can't happen, except who's invested in the system staying exactly the way it is. And you need to let go of that investment, because you're not getting a return, because this system will hurt you. It's happening. So if you don't recognize that, then you're gonna let it all burn down rather than fix it for all of us.
I absolutely agree with you, Aisha. I think where I see the difference in Unitarian Universalist spaces is marriage equality affected white people, right? Marriage equality, or not being able to be married, affected white people. And it was something that like you said, there was a tangible benefit to putting that forward. And I'm not saying it wasn't a worthy thing to work on, let me be clear. But what I'm saying is that the investment that people felt was because they could see their, gay and lesbian and bi congregants in the community, in the UU community, and say, oh yeah, that's something that affects me, and I want that. And white people wanted that.
So Quiana is here in part because of the work that she does with Blue, with Black Lives of Unitarian Universalists. And I want her to be able to say some of the stuff that she's doing with Blue. And you're muted, Quiana. You got to unmute yourself.
You're muted, Quiana.
You gotta unmute. I was all on a rant. No, I'm just kidding. In the time of COVID, in the time of rioting, in the time of unrest, brown and Black folks need spaces to hold them. So some of the things that Blue has already been doing is being innovative with how we use online resources. and Dee Dee asked this question, I think I didn't speak to this point, which is, I'm taking care of the youth in my community. I run a program every Saturday called Blueberries, which is for Black youth, and it's also for their caregivers, can be any shade, but it is explicitly for Black children and youth to have access to community. Blue's doing other things like planning Juneteenth, which will be exclusively Black space to hold our history and our story. And I guess I just want to say that there's things that you can do in your closed community that look a lot like that. If you have access to Zoom, you can do a 40-minute circle and invite people into the space and say, I'm going to be here for an hour. That's a really easy way to just have dialogue and to hold each other. I think that we have to just be present for each other right now, for each other's emotions, not to control them or to shame them or anything, just to have space to say out loud all the things that are happening inside of us. That's how we can nurture and cultivate community. And I just want to say, like, when you find that community or those folks, if they're not having conversations about the impact of this state-sanctioned violence, those aren't your people. If you feel that calling in your spirit and the places you're going to get fed aren't feeding you, walk away. Walk away. If your UU community isn't feeding your spirit right now, if your minister doesn't say anything about this, if your church isn't posting something, isn't looking at it, isn't being radical, think about that. That's something Blue has really pushed me to do, to say, if I'm not being served, if the table isn't long enough, there isn't enough chairs, and the food that I eat isn't on the table, it's not my restaurant, it's not my place. So I push white folks, I push brown folks, Black folks, to make sure that the spaces that you are going to get fed are willing to accommodate you, accommodate your spirit, and accommodate the pain you're experiencing. And if they're not, create your own. Create your own. I believe Maya Angelou writes this amazing story about her grandmother, who she couldn't see herself working a job anywhere, so she made her own job. She started cooking food and selling it to folks until they were so dependent on her, she built a store. And so Blue, the work that I do, the work that many of us do in brown communities, what is out there isn't serving us. So we are reclaiming processes like restorative justice and transformative justice circles to restore us to some version of right and just. And it will not look like prisons. It will not look like bail. It will not look like police federations begging them to not fucking kill us. We cannot use that model and move forward. Find your community, make your community, find your people, please.
And doing that work grounded in Unitarian Universalist faith and theology, Black Unitarian Universalist faith and theology, authentically. I just want to name that because it's possible. It is possible that space exists, and the possibility that space exists is important. So where do we go next, Christina?
Well, I want to continue what Quiana said is, I'm hoping that Unitarian Universalists are examining what they're going to be doing, and that examination isn't about what makes them, as, and this I'm directing primarily to our white UUs, isn't about what's making them feel better, but what is materially changing the lives of Black people. So what is it that you're doing? If you're, jogging and saying that you're jogging for somebody, how is that materially changing for the better the life of a Black person in your community? Because if it isn't, if you can't draw that direct connect line, then it is a waste of your time and energy. So, are you jogging to protect somebody else to be able to jog and to enjoy themselves? Awesome. If you're just jogging so that you can post it on Instagram, that's just not going to do it. So, make some thoughtful choices, people. Like, make some thoughtful choices. It's not hard, and it just requires intention.
For white UUs, I want to invite you tonight to a webinar Chris Crass is doing. CLF is a sponsor of it. It'll be at 8 o'clock Eastern, 7 Central, you know, all of those time zones. But I think white people, we got some really serious work to do here. And this is a space to come and really look at deepening commitment.
I'm aware that we are just a few minutes from the top of the hour, and I want to make sure each of our guests has a chance to say whatever they feel has been unsaid so far. So Darren, do you have anything that you want to add as we close our show?
No, it's already been spoken into existence. And so again, now's not the time for words. Now's the time for action. And who are you? I know who I am, but who are you? And who are you going to be in this time?
Michael?
I will be watching and hopefully find something that causes me to believe in a better future. I hope I do.
Quiana?
Find your people, love on your people, and get back in the streets, whatever those streets look like for you. If you're at the dog park and a white woman needs to call the police, speak up. If you are watching a man physically harm another man, speak up. We have work to do.
Thank you. And who am I, and where is my body? And where is my body in relationship to the bodies that are being attacked and killed? Oh, it's an important conversation that is not done. Next week, the Commission on Institutional Change is coming back, and they're talking with us about accountability. So the conversation continues. The conversation is important, and it continues. And for those of you who have not been tuning into our shows with the Commission on Institutional Change, they are pushing Unitarian Universalism and its institutions, its congregations, and our association hard to do transformative, liberatory, accountable work. And we appreciate them doing that. And we're giving them space here because what they're doing is so important. Any final words from anyone? Well, maybe we end. Oh, Meg, please.
Gratitude. I know it's really hard for people of color to be in mixed spaces right now. So I really want to extend profound gratitude to our guests and hosts today.
Well, I'm going to invite us to end in the spiritual space that we began, maybe with just a moment of reflection, a moment of silence. Go in peace, beloved.